Yeah, I'm off coffee.
How long have you been off coffee?
I guess like a week now.
How does it feel?
Maybe like 2 weeks. At first, yeah, it's been 2 weeks because this would be my second week. The first week sucked because
Mm.
anything takes like 4 days to get out of your body. So what was happening is I think they upped my meds. Well, I mean me. Um, and but they upped my meds. Like I asked my doctor because I was listening to the podcast and I was like, I can't form a straight thought. And so they upped my meds, my Vyvanse. And then after that, I was like, wow, I probably shouldn't be drinking, 16 ounces of iced coffee every hour on the hour, all
That's a
day,
lot
every
of
day.
coffee.
Yeah, well, that's what I was doing because it's free at the agency. And so I would just like, we have it on tap there. And so I would just go over there, get all hyped up, and then, make some award winning ads. Not really.
No.
Well, actually, yeah, I did win some awards, but I'm being facetious. But then eventually, I like started getting sleepy and like scatterbrained, the opposite of what coffee should be doing.
Mm.
And I was like, maybe I should stop drinking coffee. So I tried to cold turkey it, and I would have like splitting headaches, like ungodly splitting headaches, have to go to sleep at like around 3 o'clock every day that I tried doing that. And then I would like, what sucks is my coffee shop near my house closes at 3. And so then eventually I was like, oh shit, it's coming. And it would be like 2:50 or something. And I would run down there and grab an iced coffee. And then I would be up all night because a
Right, because it's
man,
3
uh,
p.m.
yeah, because I shouldn't be drinking coffee that late. Uh, and
Yeah.
so I was like, well, what if I approach this like alcoholism? And I started weaning myself off of coffee, um, with green. Well, first I was doing like matcha,
Mm.
and then I started switching to green tea.
Mm.
And I think I'm gonna level out at green tea. I like it. And it also it gives me a certain like sophistication that I like. There's something about the sipping, it's like you just like you cup it and then you sip and
Yeah.
interesting. Yes. And you're like, what are you drinking? It's green tea. No, not like your Earl Grey. No, it's green. And it fits with my namaste, yoga persona that I
Yeah, no, it
hypocritically
does.
put
I'm
out.
surprised that it took you this long to get onto tea.
I'm surprised too. I mean, coffee was like a big thing. I was a barista for pretty much all of my 20s.
Hmm.
I really liked coffee. My family really liked coffee growing up. We weren't really tea people. Um, but things have to change, which is the theme of this podcast. Change.
I Speaking of, I don't want to go back to the topic of coffee, but I will. I just wanted to.
You mean you don't want to change the subject back to the topic of coffee?
Want to backslide or anything, but um, I started doing. I don't know if you've had experience with this, but I've started drinking mushroom coffee,
Yeah,
and and
people
it's
have been telling me about that.
it's so good because I don't need any more coffee than that for the rest of the day. Like I'll drink 1 cup in the morning, I'll be good for the rest of the day. Even though I mean I'm addicted to coffee, so I drink coffee after that, but I don't need it.
That was very convincing.
Yeah,
Uh, I could quit anytime. I don't need it.
I don't. Yeah, I don't need it. I just like the taste. So I've been playing around with the idea of decaf. Yeah, I know. I just can't. I can't even do it. I like the idea of decaf, but I won't. I refuse to drink it. So, um, yeah, drink your tea. Actually, this is
Interesting.
yeah,
Decaf.
good.
Interesting.
You should be wearing glasses when you're drinking tea.
It would fog up
I
my glasses. I would look ridiculous. And the point of drinking tea is to not look ridiculous.
it feels very tweedy, which you come across as very tweedy.
Like I tweet a lot on
No, like
Twitter.
no, like a tweed jacket type stuff.
Oh,
Uh, you know,
Tweety with a D.
yeah, Tweety
Okay.
with a D. I wanted to. I was thinking about this earlier, and I wanted to run this by you. Thinking about the theme of today, um, and maybe we can cut this out, or find a different place to discuss it. But you last night you said like we should talk about change and like the strength to change, and I oddly enough I've been working on this project for the past 2 weeks, trying to not conflate but trying to fuse together, like in using Christian theology, like Protestant theology and more Orthodox theology, but it's all based on salvation. And the Orthodox have a term theosis, which is transformation. It's deification, and it's like the bread and butter of it is becoming like God, like uniting with God, but it's all about becoming more and more like God through this transformative process called theosis. And so this is an interesting topic to me, but just because it's like constantly on my mind. Because
To be like God?
to the transformative properties of like the sacramental life and salvation and all this other stuff. But yeah, to be like God, I mean, yeah, how is that not on everybody's mind all the time?
I don't think that is on everybody's mind.
I feel like it should be.
What is it called? Thrombosis? I thought that was like
You say neurosis?
no, thrombosis. It's like a thing with your legs. It's like when there's like left. I don't know what it is. It's like leftover fat in your legs or something. I learned it from my 600-pound life. It's what is it?
Theosis.
Theosis. Okay.
Yeah. Theosis.
The inflammation of the the.
The inflammation of the But yeah, it goes along with my idea of change, where you if you're not changing, you're like clinging to this idea of yourself, or you're, to use like Buddhist terminology, you're like clinging to your own attachment of what life should be or what your desires are and all this other thing, but you're not allowing impermanence to just exist. You're still clinging to something.
Yeah, I think the like you have like a fixed mindset as opposed to a change mindset, or a fixing mindset, I guess you would say. I think I saw some like influencer talking about that. You know, those wellness influencers are like, every day I wake up at 4 a.m. and I scream affirmations into the mirror, and then I do 180 sun salutations, and then I, get ready for work or something.
Yeah, that Andrew Huberman, or however you say his name, like I'm changing my neurology by screaming at the mirror every day.
Is that why? I was just kidding. I didn't know that was a real thing. I was literally just like, people shouldn't do that. For one thing,
well,
you have neighbors.
I don't know. They like, there's influencers online who say like, I followed that whatever his name is, David Goggins' morning routine for 30 days, and here's what happened. Like, I'm getting up at 4:30 and running for 30 miles, and then I'm going to my day job where I'm wrestling all the people that I work with. This is just like unsustainable living.
It just sounds like someone training to be like a Muay Thai, like a UFC fighter, honestly. Like, that sounds great, but not, it has to be in the right context. Like, I can't go to the agency and be like, let's throw down.
Right.
For my wellness, for the sake of change, for my theosis. I got him in the headlock, and I'm just like, you have to let go of a fixed mindset. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to even try to aspire for that. And I say that as someone who wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning and listen. I don't scream affirmations. I don't scream at all. But I get my stuff together and I have a 30-minute walk to jujitsu, which I normally listen to music.
Mm.
And I just like get into the vibe of music. And depending on how I'm feeling, recently I've been listening to a lot of Spanish music because I'm trying to teach myself Spanish. Dude, that shit's awesome. And 5 a.m. it really gets you pumped in like a way that's not like a Metallica or metal
Mm.
pumped where you're like mad, but
Okay.
you're still like energetic and ready to like wrestle, but for fun, you know?
What was Clark? Do you remember Clark Franzman's joke about listening to Mexican music or Spanish
No,
music?
no. Clark
He said
Frenzman's a comedian in LA. I think he's still a comedian. I haven't checked in on him in a while, but yeah, he's super funny. He was from Athens.
he's he. I think he is one of my most quoted comics still. Like I'll find myself just quoting his jokes walking around the house. But he had a joke where he said, "If you don't," I like listening to the Spanish. I'm going to butcher the joke, but I like listening to Spanish radio because if you don't speak Spanish, no commercials. It's just excited Mexican men and excited Mexican music.
That's great.
Such a good joke.
Yeah, classic Franzman.
But I appreciate that, like, just because it does something different to your mind if you listen to pump up music that's in a different language. Because I'll listen to like Russian or German
Of course you
music.
do. Yeah, that tracks. I think that's the why this podcast works out so well is because we have such a balance where you're over here listening to Wagner and things that are probably a little bit more leaning towards the right with the lyrics, and I'm over here listening to
Leaning to the Reich.
yeah. Oh, good, great, that's great.
You're the one that said Wagner. I'm not listening to Wagner.
I don't know. I can't think of it. Rammstein, I guess.
Yeah,
Rammstein is the
Rammstein
only,
rules.
and then the 99 Luftballons. That's the only thing that I know that's German.
Is that Nina?
I don't know. I don't know their names. But
But
yeah,
okay, and yeah, so I'm listening to Rammstein, and I'm listening to Pump Up James before you go like shoot up your school. You're listening to
yeah, and I'm listening to like pump up jams before you like unionize your textile factory. Yeah, I get it. I get it. You know, I also listen to a lot of Afrobeat and like high life music. But that's because my ex is Ghanaian, and so I got
uh,
in on that. And that's like it's kind of like lounge music in a different language. It's pretty good. It's pretty cool. It's great. It's good to put on, man. It's good to like for one thing, you don't get caught up in the lyrics because every time I listen to music, I'm like, oh yeah, this song's about me. And then it's just like, and then the lyrics
okay.
like veer off, and it's like, and then I went to New York, and I'm like, well, I've never been to New York. I'm out of this. I don't like this song anymore, you know.
Yeah,
And
every
then
song is like your theme song. You're like
yeah,
walking into rooms playing this song, going, "This is my story. This is my life."
if it's in Spanish, I'm like, yeah, they're like es mi historia, es mi viva. Yeah, you're like into it. You're like, this is my life. This is the Spanish words I know. And it helps change your mindset too. It does. It helps like it's a good way for me to start the morning. It's part of my process. And then I kind of walk in and I warm up and then I wrestle my friends. And then I rush to work as fast as I can. And that's my morning routine. And I don't listen to it. I also don't listen to it with headphones on. That's a big thing that I've started doing recently is, and
You're
by
one of those
doing, I mean, I
people.
lost my headphones.
Uh,
And so this is not like a wellness, like take your headphones off. It's like lose your headphones. Um, put your headphones in your pocket, and then when it gets of your jacket, and then when it gets hot, throw that jacket over your backpack and forget that your headphones are in it, so that they can fall out while you're walking to yoga. That's what happened to me, and that's my wellness inspiration. And so I listen to it just from my phone, like in my like jacket pocket, very annoyingly. I'm that guy.
yeah, yeah. I don't like that guy, but I appreciate that you're forthright about that's who you are.
Yeah. Well, I've been practicing radical candor, so it's okay that everyone understands. then I'm that douchebag who's playing his music through his phone while he walks down the street.
Yeah, you're also the douchebag that says radical candor.
Yeah, I am. What do you want me to say? Radical honesty?
Yeah, I would rather you say radical honesty.
I would say radical honesty, but I looked it up and it was like, it is like a belief, but it was sort of co-opted by this like wellness guy in the 90s. And he made a bunch of money off this book. And then he started getting a bunch of people who were really like following him. And then he
Mm.
kind of started a cult. And then he kind of like scammed all these people. And so I'm like, let's say radical candor because I got it from Star Trek Picard. There's a character who practices radical candor in Star Trek
Makes me
Picard.
think of radical condor, but that's
I
not what
like
it is.
that. That's like a
Yeah, I
condor that
like
can
it
do like
too, but it's a
kickflips.
different concept entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. But I think it's like back to theosis about back to like the impermanence and holding on to it. I mean, that's what trauma does, right? Trauma keeps you in a space in your life where it's almost like you're frozen, but you're not. Like you're kind of stuck there and everyone else is moving around you. And I think about this a lot is that like it's like you can't figure out how to get out. Like you're in this bear trap and everyone is just like walking around you like you're in New York City or something and no one really cares. And then maybe a couple of people come up and they're like, "Hey, are you okay?" And you're like, "I'm fine." Um, but trauma will do that, especially long form trauma or complex PTSD or something like that. And then once you get out, once something, well, I mean me, I mean the general you. Well, I mean, the not so general you. I don't want to militaristic it. So like the universal you. Um, once you get out, you have to catch up.
Mm.
And I struggle with that emotionally. I'll feel like something will happen and I'll be like, well, that put me in a bad mood. And they're like, me too. And then like an hour later, they're like, I'm fine. And I'm like, how did you
Mm.
process that so quickly?
Right.
And I talk about that a lot in therapy. It's like, it's kind of like people who aren't stuck. Well, I don't want to say, I mean, everyone's got trauma, but it seems like the people around are moving quicker, processing things quicker, living life a little bit more like bolder. Um, and it takes a lot of bravery to make that change. I mean, like even not even just sobriety, but even in recovery, right? Because you got to look inward and be like, why am I stuck? Like, what's this mud around me? You know? And then you got to like pull yourself out of the mud, but you've kind of been sitting in it for a while. So your muscles have entrophied. They got weak. You done got weak. Uh, and it's rough. It's rough to get out of, but you have to keep pushing and pushing. And I think that takes bravery. It hurts. It sucks. No one understands. And and I think that's like also letting go of the permanence because it's scary at the same time. Like it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, but I think Stockholm syndrome is only when it's from Stockholm. Otherwise it's just trauma bonding. Um, or sparkling trauma bonding. That should have been the joke. uh, you know,
But so that's an interesting point, and I think that that it's really easy to get stuck in the mud because you have just watched so many people pass you, and they're like 50 milestones ahead of you,
yeah.
and you just got out of the bear trap. And just to continue with the analogy of like you're stuck in the mud, that's where the
Let's stick with
lotus.
mud. We're saying bear trap and mud. Let's stick with mud just so it's
Let's
not
stick
so
with mud.
there's a bear trap in the mud.
There's a bear. Yeah, but that's the point of the mud. Like that's a really good picture because that's where the lotus blooms. And so being able to just accept where you are, um, like there's a phrase. It's even used in magic. I learned it during magic, but during my time doing that. But God meets you where you are. So there's no like there's a bravery to change that requires an element of patience and just appreciating that you are you may hit those milestones that you saw all the people around you hit before you, but you're going to hit them differently, and you're going to skip some. You're not going to hit some of them. You have a different trajectory, and that's an important that there's an important acceptance in that, where change almost necessitates your acceptance that your life is going to look different. Even from a sober standpoint, like you get sober, it takes bravery to go, all right, I have to put down the bottle. And that means that things are going to be very different. And you don't really appreciate that until you're actually doing like recovery work. But there's a implicit feeling that things are going to look differently when you get sober. So
Yeah.
change is embracing the unknown, really.
It's also coming to that same acceptance. I mean, like we say this a lot, but it's like you don't just, so getting sober is the first step. It's not, there's a lot more after that. And then there's like, oh, okay, I got to put down the bottle. I'm like, okay, well, I got to stop hanging out with all these assholes. And like, oh, okay, I got to start getting my life together. And like, oh, okay, I got to start changing my morning routine. And you're like, oh, okay, I got to start screaming into the mirror for affirmations. And then you're like, well, okay, now I got to stop doing that. Oh, okay, I got to start. And it's just like constantly testing these things out where, while, everyone around you is just like sort of doing their own thing. I mean, at least that's what it appears. It's obvious everyone is going through something, but it's like there is that constant force and recognition. I think it's like the bravery of being able to identify your triggers and the things that are holding you back that will allow that change, because the change doesn't happen on its own. So there's like a push, like you got to keep pushing. And there is patience, but I personally hate patience. I fucking hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate when people tell me to be patient. Like I didn't live in Atlanta when the 85 bridge was out. Like, yeah, I know how to be patient. Okay. I know how to sit in traffic and listen to true crime podcasts for 4 hours just so I can get to work and make no money. I get it. But I hate when people tell me that, because it's like, it just clashes with my tenacity, and everything about my sobriety is a defiance against the things that held me back. It's very Camus of me, right? Like absurdist. Like it's very like, I don't know. It's like, I get told to be patient all the time. Honestly, like I've probably like 5 times this week, I've been told to be patient in different aspects of my life, at work, at the gym, and yoga. And every time I'm like, what I'm hearing is that you're not prioritizing me, and I hate you for that. And, and it's just, but it's like, it is a truth. But it doesn't mean I have to accept it. I know that it exists. I know that it's real. I know that I have to do it, but I don't have to accept it, because it feels to me like it's like giving up, right? It's, well, not giving up. It's like not having control. Or yeah.
But see,
Don't point at me like that.
No, but that's it. That's it. That's what takes. So, okay, I I I don't want to get too into this like theology thing, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to speak exclusively. But there's a thing in Protestant theology, or in all the theologies, but there's this argument, faith versus works. And this is what I've been struggling with and just like learning about more and more recently. And I think it has everything to do with this, because my conclusion is that they're both necessary. One does not exclude the other. They're both required for change. And faith is that first jumping off point. It is the putting down the bottle for the first and last time, hopefully. But faith is that coming into relation with yourself and finding the ability to let go of control. That is like the first requirement that you can keep coming back to. You're always going to have this dialogue with this letting go, and then the recovery part, which is, to use Christian terminology, the works involved with emboldening your faith or strengthening your sobriety. And it's a constant going back and forth, but they're fused together in this relationship. And there's so much, and like the patience that comes with doing both, doing sobriety and doing recovery. There's this real want to take control of your life.
Because it was so out of control for so long.
Right, exactly.
And you
exactly.
like that, but that is allowed by the drinker, by the drunk, by the person who's doing it. They allow that.
Yes,
They
but
binge
then
themselves essentially.
but it's still this. I feel like your life spins out of control while you're still trying to cling to it. You're still trying to control it when you're drinking. Like, drinking is a reactionary thing to do. Like, you're still trying to control your emotions. You're still trying to control, like us doing stand up. Like, I'm going to drink such and such amount so that I can go up there and do stand up how I know I can do it. And you can do that maybe once or twice, but you always mess up. But there's a relinquishing that goes along with the recovery work that, I mean, it is a patience of some kind, but it's just allowing the recovery to exist without, you forcing it.
Yeah, you can't really force it, but you definitely have to face it. You have to step into it.
Yeah, there's a lot to confront, but
yeah, you have to confront it. I think that's what I hate about the idea of patience, because to me it's like, okay, I'm just gonna wait for it to wash over me like a tsunami, but like instead I'd much rather go in swinging, right? And then people are like, you need to slow down, and I'm like, you need to slow down. But it's like, I think that's kind of what I struggle with, is this idea that it's going, like, when people are like, don't worry, it'll come. And I'm like, well, I'm going to start walking towards it while it's coming towards me, and I'll get there, we'll meet in the middle.
Right.
And it's like, but what it is like the confrontation of it. But I know, like, in the first few years, I definitely felt that it was just this thing that I just had to sit in. There was a lot of waiting. Like, I remember when someone described what sobriety was like, and I was like, it's kind of like waiting in line at the DMV. Like the super long line.
It is. I mean, it really is. Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. You can't leave.
You can't leave because then you'll miss your number. You can't smoke inside. And like, everyone is in it also there. And like, everyone who helps you is kind of also doesn't want to be there. And so, but like, eventually I found that you got to you get your license and you can start driving, and you got to then you got to decide where you're going to go. And that's where, when people are like, oh, be patient, I'm just like, no, I'm going to put my foot to the floor. I got to catch up. I just got out of the mud.
Yeah.
I got to figure this shit out fast.
Well, now I can speed, and if I get pulled over, I'm not going to get a DUI.
Just a regular old speeding
ticket. Just a regular old speeding ticket. But you made me think of it like, and you do jujitsu, so it's similar to this, where you're waiting for your opening. There's a lot of tension. You're going to be tested. You're going to be squeezed. You're going to be constricted. It's going to be uncomfortable. But you kind of have to. You made a good point of, you just have to sit there with some of it. You got to let your partner gas themselves out a little bit, and so that you can find your position, and you can get. I don't know the terms, but you can, get in there.
Like the underhook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, and you're right. Sometimes you have to especially if you're older like me, you have to learn when it's right to pause so you can catch your breath and hold them down and get them in a position where they will waste all their energy while struggling, and
Right.
then once they make a mistake, you go for that shot.
And change, that's the point of, I think that's the point of what we're trying to say here, is that change can't be rushed, because then it's going to be messed up. Something's gonna fall off the car. And I see you getting kind of antsy with your feelings and stuff. Drink your tea and relax, because this is just a part of it, right? Like, it's so
Interesting. Change can't be rushed, huh?
it's like it's like when you have a flower or something. I don't garden or anything, but you can't like yell at it like you do in the mirror every day. You can't yell to try to get the flower to emerge. You just got to go, all right, well, I can do what I can. I'm going to water it. I'm going to let the sun happen. The sun I have no control over. I have to just let things be, and then it'll come, hopefully.
I know what you're saying is true, but I hate it.
You have such a problem with this. Well,
I
well,
hate
okay.
it.
What has changed to you then? What is your idea of
No,
change?
I know what you're saying is completely what changes. Everything you're saying is on the level. But and I would totally tell that to somebody else, honestly.
But
But I
what
hate
can't
that
you? What is your defense saying right now? What is your heart saying?
defiance. Defiance. Time is the only resource we truly have. Time is the only thing that we have. And when you're drinking, you come out of it and you're like, holy fucking shit, I have wasted so much time. We talked about that in the good grief episode, right? And so like every minute that you're sitting there just being patient is more wasted time to sobriety or to alcohol. And I fucking hate that shit. I hate it because it means that it's winning, and you can't let it win. You can't let it win. That's this thing that I say all the time. I tell it to people all the time. You can't, whoever hurt you, whoever stops you, whoever has been trying to whoever gave you that trauma, if it's your parents or like some shitty fucking whatever, right? Anytime living a good life is the ultimate revenge. Living a good life is the ultimate revenge. And so when you are sitting there feeling like shit, they're winning, and you can't let them win. And that's the thing, is it's like, that's the dichotomy of sobriety, is that for it to happen, you kind of have to sit and wait for the right moment for that change. And you also kind of make a lot of these like very small adjustments of change in order to see the bigger picture. Like it's like every day, you got to take it every day, but it's also, you got to push yourself a little bit every day to get a little stronger every day so that they don't win. Like the Count of Monte Cristo, like you can't just sit in your prison. You got to learn how to sword fight and do math and stuff. I feel like I bring up the Count of Monte Cristo on this
You do.
podcast
That really had an
way
effect
too
on
much.
me. Yeah, no, that's okay. That's your inspiration.
I guess so. But it's like, I just,
But
that's
see,
where it
dude,
feels like,
that's the thing though. You're talking about like eating time. You're talking about like taking control of time instead of allowing, like, it time consumes us all. But you're saying that you need to like grab a hold of it and get the most out of it you can. And you can't do that fully without letting things breathe. You know this. I know that you know this, but like
I know
it's
that I know this too. I still fucking hate it. And I can hate it all I want. I can hate it all I want. And when
change
it
is just
happens,
inhaling and exhaling. That is what change is.
I get that. And I hate that too. That's the thing. I am completely on board with everything that you're saying, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to bitch about it every minute that it's happening. I'm not
Okay.
going to pace around trying
Yes.
to find other ways to fill time to become better, to gain back some sort of skill that I lost when I was like passing out in parks and shit. Like I, even this podcast, I'm like watching videos on how to like make it better, try to get like promotion going, things like that. And I'm just like filling that time instead of watching another episode of King of the Hill, which I watch constantly. That was another thing I've changed. I had to stop watching the same, like binging shows. I had to like start watching new shows. I was too comfortable in them. And now I fucking hate being comfortable. I got rid of coffee and I started drinking green tea, and everything is just like very much like, oh, this is new. This is new. This is new. I want to do that. I want to do this. And then people are like, well, you got to wait. And I'm like, then I'm going to find a way to just get around you and do it myself. And it's not always successful. If it's rarely successful, but I think my point is like, yes, you are right, but also fuck that.
So, well,
Like fuck that. Like go in with fucking rage and try to push that change as much as you can. Talk to people. Like if you're nervous about something, address it and then do something about it. Like I know that you have to like think about that shit, but like also fuck thinking about that shit and get in there.
see, this is exactly the mentality I had when I was trying to unite with God using ceremonial magic, and it blew up in my face to the most extreme degree.
It
Because
seems like I want to pause there. I know that you're saying, but when you say I tried to unite with God using ceremonial magic and it blew up in my face, I immediately see you like accidentally summoning a demon. And you're like, literally, it blew up in my face.
well, the image that comes to my mind is more of a science experiment gone wrong, and
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a Doctor Strange thing,
right? But my point is that like this is the crux of theosis too. There's a lot of patience in purification. That's the first part of both ceremonial magic and theosis, because they're both trying to attain to union with God. There's a purification process, and if you rush through it, especially, and you can, and I think that you would appreciate this, but if you rush through that process, like I was doing with magic, where a lot of trauma stuff was coming up, a lot of emotions, a lot of release. We've talked about this, a lot of releasing from the body and all these, because of sobriety, all this stuff was coming up, and you just rush through it because you're like, nope, 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 nope. Don't want to deal with that. Have not looked at that in 10 years or haven't looked at that since that happened. So I would like to continue my way toward God, please. And the more you try to rush through it, the more you realize, holy crap, I can't actually unite with God unless any of this stuff is figured out. Like I can't approach divinity while I'm just covered in all this gunk. And a lot of that, you have to like sit with it and go, man, this sucks. I can't believe that I have to like look at this. This is some bullshit, but that's the only way change can happen, is if you sit with it. And that's the worst part.
My point is that yes, everything you're saying is right. Like you have to sit with your shit. You have to do your shadow work. You have to like stare at a ceiling. I mean, it's the same with the creative process. You have to just stare at a ceiling.
Maybe.
What?
Go on. It's fine.
I'm going to listen back to this episode and figure out what you said. You have to stare at the ceiling. And like, that's like how you come up with ideas. You have to kind of like go for a walk and slow things down and all of these things. And I also think, like you were saying, this sucks and it's uncomfortable. And my point is, you are totally allowed to complain the entire time. And that's what I'm going to do. You were totally allowed to hate it and like bitch about it and like try to like process it through all these emotions and be like, yeah, this fucking sucks. Every day I walk into jiu-jitsu, I go, this is a stupid hobby. Why am I doing this? but then I do it. And that's the dichotomy of a Jody Buffkin. You know, I'm a Libra. I'm very well balanced like that. But like every day I'm like, I should quit and do pickleball, but I know that I'm not going to like pickleball. I know. It's like
Right.
grown. It's like, it makes me feel like I'm a miniature person playing ping pong. Uh, but it's like, I'm never going to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be boring. I don't want other people, and I think a lot of people do this, and they don't they want to get comfortable, and once they're comfortable, they're like, I'm done.
Hmm.
And that's just not the case. You can't do that, especially with sobriety. You
That's
know,
the point. That's the thing. Like those are the people that are like sola fide, faith by faith alone. I'm justified and all this. Like that's not. That's crazy. That would be crazy. You're not. You. This is maybe not the platform for this, but just I. It's. It makes me upset to think because I'm looking at Christianity through a recovery lens. It's insane to think that by like accepting Jesus Christ into your heart, you're like it's like slapping home base and going, I'm safe. Like that's ridiculous. That's if anything, you just hit the ball. Now you need to run. Like there's so many different look, the thing that we talked about yesterday about what this is the strength to change. And there's the real core of being meek in the world is to allow it to pass through you. It's very in this like Buddhist way of just allowing life to just be, and it doesn't affect you. You don't cling to it. It doesn't like poison you in any way. It just exists, and you're witnessing it. And
I don't think that's meek. You say you called that meek. I think that's brave.
no, but
Which
meek
I know that I'm flip
that is
flopping
what
right
the
now.
technical meek term is. Like
Oh,
I
like
think
the meek shall inherit the earth kind of meek.
yeah,
When
yeah,
I
yeah,
think meek, I think like Millhouse from The Simpsons.
yeah, everybody does. That's the wrong way to look at it. That's not what meek means. Meek is to be able to look at life, not be infected by it, and to be totally, zen or whatever. To be yourself in every situation. That's meekness.
Oh, that's called radical candor. That thing that you just made fun of me about. But but yeah, I definitely agree. It's and I don't know if it's the strength to change. I think I hate that term because strength is this unattainable thing that it's abstract, but it's bravery. Bravery is something that comes in your heart, and it's not about a physical body. It's about like bravery to change. I mean, if you put the bottle down after drinking, even if you've just even to re-examine your drinking habits, then you're
Mm.
brave. You know,
Mm.
like that takes an enormous amount of courage. And I think it even just to wake up the next day, like you've been thinking, it seems like you've been thinking a lot about faith and Christianity and stuff. And I've been reading the myth of Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
The
have a
myth
hard
of
time when there's a lot of vowels in a word. Uh,
Camus.
by Albert Camus,
Yeah.
or sorry, Albert Camus. Um, and like it's a lot of that kind of stuff because it's definitely the examination of killing yourself. And
Mm.
why don't we? Like, there's plenty of reasons why we should.
Now you
All
sound like
people.
all the German music that I listen to.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I know. And not a lot of this. They don't bring that up in the Spanish. At least I don't think so. I don't know. They might be. It might be in every song. I have no idea. I'm too busy dancing. At 5 a.m. But it's like, we have no control, like you're saying, and we have very little control. And I think most people don't recognize how little control that we truly have. I think a lot of people think that they have control of their life. And I work with a lot of very controlling people. And then you're like, do you? Right? Like,
Mm.
it's like it's more of the illusion of control. And so, but like just to get up and get going, that's bravery to accept this change. That's like the courage to go on for another day. And when it comes to sobriety, it's even more so because, well, I don't want to say more so because that makes it seem like we're better than other people, but yeah, maybe we are. But
Far from it.
far from it, but maybe. I mean, I just don't want to establish that, but probably.
This is all the tea you're drinking.
Yeah, that green tea is really hitting me because I'm a little. It's just.
I'm a little better than you.
It's a little better than coffee.
Yeah,
coffee. Yeah. I drink green tea.
I remember when I drank coffee.
Yeah. But it's like the courage to live. It's the courage to like not just live, but like to fucking live and be
The
present.
courage to be, yeah.
Yeah, and like to be and like not just like present in your own emotions, but like one of the things of like I've learned from losing my headphones is when you lose your headphones on the CTA in Chicago, the train, you're like a hero on the train because you're the only one aware of what's going on the train. And when someone gets on the train also without headphones and they're like of the like aggressive variety, it's up to you. It's on you. Because everyone else is looking at their fucking phones, waiting for like, you know, and listening to whatever, some podcast or whatever, probably us, hopefully us. Don't take your headphones off now.
Or take them off and make the whole train listen.
I love that idea. And then be like, they're functioning. It's called Functioning by Jody Buffkin and Tom Russell. Tell everybody. But it's like being the courage to be present, the courage to like, to make that movement when everyone else around you is sort of also kind of in their own disassociation is what a lot of that change comes from, and that theosis I think comes from, right? It's like you have to face God, and it's not going to be what was it in that movie Dogma? Wasn't God, what was her name? I can't think of her name right now.
It's not Tilda Swinton, was it?
No, it was the woman who sang "You Oughta Know." You oughta know.
It's not Inya, is it?
No,
I don't know.
She had the best album, Jagged Little Pill. Everyone who's listening to us right now is like, dude, it's Alanis Morissette. Alanis Morissette is God, and it's also like, you know, I remember in comics and other stories, like you look at God and you go blind,
right?
And all of these things, and like, and it's this sort of thing that you have to comprehend, or you have to have a pure heart, like in Indiana Jones, to like cross the bridge. And to do that, you gotta like, that takes bravery. And I know that you're speaking of like a Christian God, but when I speak of God, I really think of like an internal God, which I don't know if that's within theology, but like,
sure,
that is bravery. And that is what that's what it takes to take change, because change is scary. It's always scary. Anytime there's change happening. I mean, climate change is super scary. And it's got the word change right in it. Like it's something that means that you're going to be uncomfortable. I mean, that's the thing about being human, is that we like thirst for adventure, but we also thirst for home at the same time. And we thirst for comfort, and we thirst for routine. And to be able to change that routine is really brave. I feel like I just rambled, but it sounded insightful.
No, I think
it must be the tea. My ramblings are insightful.
Yeah, my ramblings are so slow and gentle.
Yes, like the smooth taste of this green tea mixed with ginseng.
There's also a part of change where you kind of realize like what you want is not how you get it. Like,
yeah,
you know, you don't come to it goes back to what you were talking about just getting up every day and like testing things. Like maybe today the thing that I say to myself in the mirror will work, and I'll just do that until it doesn't work, and then I'll have to find something else. But having a goal in mind does not mean that it's just a straight line. And it's so weird about like recovery and stuff because it is really ephemeral until you're in it. And then even then you're kind of just lost. And you don't really appreciate the change that is occurring in your life because regardless of how you approach it, I think that your disposition toward change is really integral to a lot of people's um, way of being, just because it is really hard. But if you're getting up every day and you have a goal in mind, it doesn't really matter how you're going to attain that goal. You're going to get there as long as you keep going.
Yeah.
And it's going to
This is
look
why I hate
really,
patience. This is what I'm talking about.
but
This
as
is
long as you're
my
moving,
point.
it's okay.
What? I pooped in your bouquet? What did you
As
say?
long as you're moving, you know, like even if you're like taking time to have a leisurely afternoon, that's still movement in the right direction. It's just an orientation problem. Like when you take time to read a book, I have this issue. When I take time to read a book, I'll go, man, I'm wasting like 2 hours of today that I should be using to, I don't know, recover. And you go, well, all right, just what do you even, who are you to talk to yourself like that? What are you, crazy? Are you out of your mind? Just read this book. It's okay. Watch this TV show. Just don't allow this to encroach in your everyday way of being. Just like there's moderation. And change doesn't come from you talking to yourself as if you've failed by, you know, waking up at 5:10 a.m. instead of 5, which I do myself all the time. You know, like
Yeah.
I'll get up at 5:15 and I'll go, damn, I missed the whole day. And it's just, it's this, there takes a level of intensity to be an addict. And then that same intensity just remains with you in recovery. And
Yeah, this is shame. It's the shame of drinking. It's the shame of hangovers. I mean,
right.
waking up at 5:10 instead of 5 and it's not perfect. That's still like you're like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll sleep in. And when I say sleep in, I mean like I wake up at 7 and I'll be
Right.
like, son of a bitch. I've spent most of my life sleeping in because I was out late drinking. And but that's just the shame. And that's another thing you have to face. That's another thing you have to confront. And another thing you have to change is that mental process where you're like, yes, I can sit down and read this book. At least I'm not sitting at a bar and reading this book. Or, you know, I'm not sitting with a bottle of whiskey and reading this book and like trying to pretend like I'm Charles Bukowski or something like that.
Right.
Like it is about like making these very present decisions in order to get through that change. And you can complain about it the whole time. You can sit there and read the book and be like, wish I was at the bar right now, but I can't. So I guess I'm going to have to read the love poems of Anne Sexton and light a candle or whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah,
like you
whatever
can,
the universal you does at night.
yeah, no, I don't mean, yeah, I don't mean me. I actually mean like everyone else who's listening to this
I
podcast.
mean, y'all, I'm not projecting. That's what you do.
That's what all of, I assume that our demographics are the same as the demographics of Anne Sexton poetry lovers. And they know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't read Anne Sexton. I rarely read. Um, but like it is that small, those small things that you have to do. And that's when someone's like, be patient. And I hate that because to me, it brings back that shame of just like like laying around waiting for my hangover to wear off, which it never did. And now I'll eat like a piece of cake and I'll wake up the next morning and have a tinge of a hangover and all that shame comes back. Or I'll be like when I got COVID and I was like, wow, this just feels like I'm hungover. I fucking hated that because it was just full of like shame. And so I ended up learning how to macrame. I was like I was like, I got to figure out something to do with this time. I can't talk to anybody and I'm going insane and it reminds me too much of alcoholism. And it's just like making those present decisions to to get past all that, for that change, for that bravery, to get through the shame, to get through the shit, to get through all of that trauma that you may not even know is there, until you change the way that you talk to yourself.
And that reminds me of what you brought up earlier about um, it's it's really necessary to confront the present moment. Um,
Yeah.
and this is something that I don't know if you do. It seems like something that you would do as a tea drinker, but the when you like meditate or when you do prayers that are like something like centering prayer, um, there while like there's so many things that is going on that we could talk about spiritually, but what it really does is help you remain always adjusting back, reorienting to the present. And this is the practice of change. Like, if nothing else, being able to readjust when you find yourself somewhere else and coming back to center, coming back to the present, because this is where change happens, right? And
Letting go of the impermanence. That's
right.
yeah.
And but it's really, and I think that like that's why meditation is so valuable. Or prayer, because it really allows you to see how far away you are from yourself each day, while coming back. But especially when you start meditating, you're really just like you see how scattered you are.
Yeah.
And it's even doing something like a contemplative practice, no matter how long you do it for, there's a constant need to readjust and come back and confront the present moment, and it's always hard. Um, and there's a lot of reward in doing it, like you said, like what you made me think of earlier. Like you just sit and you're complaining the whole time while you're moving, and like you're so fed up with all this stuff, but then you get to that place where things have worked out and you go, oh man, that's nice. And then you go right back into just complaining until the next thing happens. But those moments are really, really nice, and they're going to keep coming. And just finding ways to be present in that too is really, it's really hard.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because as a tea drinker, I actually don't meditate very much.
Oh, okay.
I I do my contemplative. Well, so when I first got sober, and also when I was drinking, is I was disassociating,
Oh,
and I was even disassociating well up until like earlier. Like I still struggle with it. I'm constantly up in my head, or I'm chasing something or having some weird argument. And that's one of the reasons why I do jujitsu, is because if you disassociate, you will get choked out.
right.
And so it kind of like forces you to stay in the moment so that that doesn't happen. So it's kind of the opposite of meditating. It's, well, I mean, you're still breathing, but it's like, and you're breathing deeply, and you use the same meditative practices. I mean, like I used to go to the Soto Zen Center in Atlanta a lot when I got sober earlier, like another time I got sober back in my like 30s, and I would sit with them in the mornings, and it was beautiful, honestly. Like we would all sit, and you literally stare at a wall, and the sun would like rise up through the windows and stuff. And when I got sober this time, I was like, well, maybe I should do something like that again to kind of help with this disassociation. And I really couldn't find anything that really stuck out to me. I didn't really want to do that. I definitely just found myself sitting and then daydreaming and having arguments in my head for like an hour, and then leaving feeling shitty and like having all this like shame from that. And then when I started doing jujitsu, it was like every time I disassociated, I would, boom, I'm in an arm bar. Boom, I'm in like a triangle. Boom, this guy is like, giving me like an ankle lock, and it hurts like hell. And that's also with yoga. Like anytime I start like I was saying, like I in the last podcast with the somatic issues, or the somatic stuff I was going through with yoga, I would, it felt like daydreaming, but it was more real. And then I would come back out of it because my body would hurt like hell, and something would pop, or something would move. And now that I'm in better shape and my practice is a little bit farther along, I am more present in the move, and finding, like you were saying, those small adjustments. Like I took a yoga class with my yoga teacher Whitney, and and just to plug in, I go to Namaskar Yoga Studio in Southport. It's in North Southport, the north side of Southport. Uh, and she was like, I had been doing yoga and I was like, oh man, I'm getting really good at this. And then Whitney was like, make sure that you're putting pressure through your pinky, or through your pinky toe. And then so I did that, and I was like, I suck at this. Yoga sucks. I am really, everything hurts. I can't get any, like, this made everything more intense.
Mm.
And even like, earlier today I did an open mat in jujitsu, and there's all these like little refinements that I've been trying to make in my game because I'm competing next week. And we did this thing called Shark Tank, where the whole like gym just fights you one by one.
Okay.
And it sucks. It sucks. But I love it, but also it sucks. And I'm going to complain about it, but I love it. And at the end of it, I asked my coach, Jason, at Jason Bender Martial Arts in Ravenswood, in North Ravenswood. It's in exactly 30 minutes on the opposite side of me from my yoga studio. As above, so below. And so, did you just do the mark of the cross? And so, like, I asked him after everything, and I was like, "Hey, do you have any wise wisdom for me after the Shark Tank?" And he was like, "Yeah, you got to get that dog in you." And I was like, "Okay, like who hasn't seen that on a t-shirt?" And then he looked at me and he went, "Why did you get sober?" And I got so fucking mad at him, but also like loved him for saying that, because it was this big reminder that there is like a push of like why I'm doing this. Like, why am I doing this? Why did I get sober? What is my motivation for this change that I'm trying to push myself out of? Like, I'm like, if I push myself out of that mud and I put in all that strength, I need to carry, well, not strength, let's stay away from that word. If I use the bravery to push myself out of the mud and move along and try to catch up with the rest of the world, I need to bring that with me in everything that I do. And I don't know, I'm still processing what he said, but it's that sort of like presence and being present. There's also, that brings in a whole minor adjustment where now I'm not just existing, I'm existing with an intention that is like the force of 1,000 raging fires. And then I even spoke to him. I was like, how do I even like adjust that? Like, yeah, like I got super fucking mad at him because the anger and the shame that comes from my sobriety all bubbled up when he said that. And it reminded me that I've been sort of failing myself by not pushing myself even harder. And I was like, but I can't just like go ham on everyone that pisses me off. I can't just like, there's only so much energy in the universe. And so now there's an adjustment. Like, how do I know when to take that moment, when not to take that moment, when to sit with my partner or with the guy I'm fighting and let them struggle for a little bit. But now that's being applied to every minute of my life, because I owe it to the version of myself that had the bravery to get out of the mud. And not just that, I owe it to the version of myself who had all the dreams of before I started drinking, and trying to connect those things together. But the only way you can do that is also by being patient. And that's where the gauge comes in. And I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it. I just want to burn the world down, but also hug it at the same time. I hate it.
Well, how does that feel to say?
Right now,
Yeah.
I feel great.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's insightful because I'm drinking tea. So it's, I feel like it's
It's
great.
it's important. Um, this is actually why I was so I've been looking into this whole faith versus works stuff, because I think you bring up a really good point, which is self-inquiry, consistent self-inquiry is really important in relation to change, because I know that we're almost out of time with this stuff, so I'll just briefly mention um, I'm getting confirmed next month at my church, and due to that,
What does that mean?
the bishop's going to come to my church, and I'm going to be confirmed Episcopal.
I thought you said infirmed.
Oh no, I don't. No. That's at my church we do a Shark Tank. Everybody in the congregation beats me up. So it's blood in, blood out.
Man, I would love to go to that church. I would believe in God if there was a little bit more fighting.
But anyway, the thing that has been on my mind has been just this idea of like, okay, so what are you doing here? What's the goal? What do you want from this? Why are you here? And that's been, I was at like doing discerning orthodoxy last year, and it's made me like look back and go, what did I like about orthodoxy? Is there something about it that is attractive now? And so just kind of weighing the options and getting to finding yourself in all of those decisions. Like, as much as, and I know that this is still like, it's like a religious question of like, where are you going to be quote unquote saved? Where's the right place? All right. Where are you most comfortable to be uncomfortable so that you can change? Like, what is going to help facilitate that? What is going to help? Where's a place that you can be that's going to help you realize who you are and what you are capable of doing? I was telling my therapist, like, when I drove to Albuquerque, I think I was in Oklahoma, where I had like a realization of, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I want. And that is the kind of thing that I need to keep reorienting myself toward, or everything's going to get lost. I'll get lost in all of the theologies, all of the pomp and circumstances. I'm going to get lost and lost and lost. What is the thing? And I think that's where like the patience and stuff comes in. Like, that's where the change comes in. Having that set mind of, this is what I want. I know I can get there. How I get there is not up to me. I mean, in some ways it's a dialogue, but I can't be in control of everything. Plus, I'll get there, and I'm going to get there the way that it was kind of intended for me to get there, right? But I think just having that mindset of, just to go back to, I guess, sobriety, I can't drink again. Whatever happens now, man, I can't wait to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I know exactly what happens if I drink again.
You'll fall back.
Right.
Or you'll die, which happens.
That is also an option. So,
which is a bummer.
Yeah.
And probably like my number one goal is to not die. But yeah, but honestly, like going back to that sort of prison, back to the Monte Cristo reference, I would rather die.
Hmm.
I would, because at least that would be a change. To sit and be stagnant again, like, is not an option. Like there is this joy that comes from accepting this impermanence and also like rolling with it, yes anding it, improv with it, baby. um but if you could fall back, first off, you're probably gonna have to get sober again, which sucks. Like, just physically, it just sucks. um but it's also just, it's such a like, it's letting down yourself.
And
And the
it's a death too.
Yeah, yeah, and all these promises that you made, you go back into the mud.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. It's really
Yeah,
hard to get out the second time.
yeah, trust me. I mean, I got sober like, I want to say 6 or 7, 8, I don't remember. And it was like a year here, a year there, 6 months here, 8 months there, and every time sucked. And the last time sucked the worst, because every time I went back, I drank even harder.
Right. Yeah.
Almost like I was like, fuck that guy. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, but it's just like, you can't go back, so you have to move forward. Like, it's like burning your boats or whatever, right? You know that phrase.
Mhm.
It's terrible because it's about imperialism and colonialism. But Cortez, when he landed in Mexico and founded the Aztecs, he burnt the boats back, and they were like, we're gonna have to fight all the Aztecs. And
All right. Look, I get that imperialism, but that's pretty badass.
I guess, I mean,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, Cortez is a bad dude, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's inspiration in the oddest places. But yeah, I guess he was more like, we're gonna genocide this whole continent. But it was he was like, when we're not going back until we do. So
Burn
you
the boat
gotta,
to your heart, Jody.
yeah, you have to burn your boats. I wish there was another. Now I hate this analogy.
No, I love it.
Um,
I'm gonna tell
of course you
everybody
love it.
that
You
you
listen to
told
German music. Um, so, but yeah, you got to keep moving forward. You have to keep moving. You have to keep the change rolling. And even being patient is moving, which was your point at the first, I know, in the very beginning. Um, and like but you could also, you have full, well, my point was, you have every right to complain, and you should complain because it fucking sucks, and everything sucks, and everything hurts, and it's fun to complain. And so, like, go ahead and complain, but also, keep in mind that you can't go back, because the boats are gone, and you're going to have to swim across an ocean to get back to Spain, and you're not going to make it. You're going to die, and it's going to suck. So it's just about accepting that. It's the courage to live.
And the bravery to kill a bunch of Aztecs.
I really don't want to end the podcast on that.
It seems so fitting, though.
I don't know. It just, it's just not really the message we're trying to get out with this podcast. Is this really terrible analogy based off of just an idiom that I use sometimes. I feel like we could change it. Maybe we'll re-record it. This isn't what a tea drinker would say. This is more coffee territory.
I missed an opportunity. I should have said moving to glory. That would have been a better way to end this.
What is that? Moving glory to glory? That sounds like a hymnal or a hymn.
Well, it's in the Bible. You're the idea of like moving glory to glory, ever in realizing the image of God within you, which is recovery in my mind.
Yeah, that sounds like taking those small milestones,
Mm-hmm.
those mini wins, until you find yourself, like you were saying, outside of the DMV, and you're kind of like, this is great. Now what do I do? And then you have to keep going. I think it's a great place to end it. Now that we got away from all that Aztec genocide murder stuff. Shit, I brought it back. Shit. Shit.
Look, Jody, the boats are burned. Let's just go into the DMV and get a number.
Yeah, I might have to go work at the DMV after this. Yeah, that's our podcast. That's functioning. We have a lot more followers now. We have a lot more listeners now, and so we probably should have started off with us talking, like saying hello to them. But we can end it that way and tell them that this is a podcast about recovery. I'm Jody Buffkin, the host. That's Hody Buffkin in Spanish, and Judy Buttskin on Instagram. And this is my co-host Tom Russell. They didn't see you do your peace signs.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
It's an audio format.
That's right. I always forget
They're
that.
on the train with their headphones on, not looking around.
If you're still listening to this, Pabst Overdrive on Instagram, and then I'm on Substack too.
Oh yeah, you do have a Substack. We have a Substack for functioning that just talks about different books and stuff like that. And yeah, keep listening, keep following, subscribe to the channel. I don't remember how it happens, but it's where you get an alert when we update, and we update about once a week.
You're supposed to be watching videos to know how to do this.
I know, I forgot. I was too involved with us changing. Anyways, yeah.